you're our only Mediterranean Jew in the state. Did you know that?
I think so.
Yeah. So
I know.
this'll
I
be
know. I'm the
this'll be
only.
a fascinating experience for all of us, not having experienced that before.
I
in
know
this
I'm the only
project.
Greek Jew in the city of Memphis.
I believe you're the only one in the state, but I'm not sure. But I find it. I'm very anxious to hear it. Help me. What year were you born?
Was it what?
What year were you born?
Where was I born?
What year?
Year 32, 1932.
1932.
And
Okay.
July the 4th, too.
Oh. Okay. Um, you lived in Greece.
In Greece.
In Greece.
Uh,
Okay.
Where in Greece?
Where in Greece? The name of town is Chalkis, Chalkis, and is the capital of the second largest island, I'd say about 100 kilometers northeast of Athens.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Crete is the largest island. Evia, Evia, is the second largest island.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about childhood in Greece before the war.
Before the war. Before the war, things were quiet. Life was, looking back now, was kind of easy, at least for us kids. Going to school, go to Hebrew school, go out play, summertime go swimming. It was, in our family, there were two things mandatory: do whatever you want. On Friday night, you're home for dinner. And synagogue, especially on Saturday, was not a question, do I go or don't I go? I mean, you get up and you go. And, but it's nothing, now we have heard rumors of what was happening in the world, but of course, back then, when I was about 8, 9 years old kid, we were not concerned with those things there.
Do you remember any anti-Semitism when you were a child?
Remember what?
Any anti-Semitism? Do you remember anybody?
Not before the war. Not before the war. After the war, there was some. As a matter of fact, one of my teachers made the remark. And
What remark? Do you remember?
how come the German did not exterminate you? So I
And
told
that
him, I
was
said,
when?
pardon?
That was when?
After the war.
Oh, that was after the war.
Right, in high school. I was after the war. And, but I told him that the Germans did not exterminate him, but I promise you one thing, that you're going to stay here long enough. Before the week was over, he was moved. Our family, like I said, I'm sorry I have not brought that magazine and an article that I wrote in the local Greek church that they asked me to write an article.
If you have it, you can always send it to me. You can always send me a copy.
I'll send you the whole magazine
I'll
of
give you
the.
my address. You can always send me things.
It's our family and another family from our hometown were one of the, let's say, power families in Greece. They helped a lot during the 1821 revolution against the Turks, both financially and with their contact in French, where they created the society to help the Greeks with arms and that sort of things. So going down generation after generation, they did have some influence in town.
When did you know that the war broke out? I know you were a child. When did you realize what was happening?
Oh gosh, there was no mistake about it. The Germans were very brutal. I've seen things like this. Our hometown was close to the barracks, and every morning, early morning, you could hear the machine gun killing people, and then after a few minutes, you could hear the trucks coming by to go to the cemetery. They had to come by my home, by our street, to go to the cemetery. And then after a while, of course, was the fire engine coming to clean up the blood. It was quite obvious what was going on. Now, the Italians, I don't know whether you know or not, Greece officially was under Italian occupation and not German occupation. And the Italian were very lenient people. They helped, and they made friends, but not the Germans. In fact, I witnessed myself, my father used to go by the seaside to come home, and there were guards over there guarding the ports. And one of the guards over there was about right afternoon, I guess lunchtime, and the guys had finished eating, and he dumped his food, whatever was left, on the ground. And a child went over there to pick it up, and that German picked up the child and broke his arm on his knee. And how can you miss that? So we were quite well aware of what was happening. Another thing of that, the war, my father was a linguist. He spoke 7 different languages. And there was a clandestine radio that my father would go over there, and sometimes I'd be at the store. He'll take me with me, and he'll listen and translate what was going on in the war. So we knew exactly what was going on, even as a child.
Tell me about the situation in Greece after the war.
After the war?
After the war broke out.
What?
Tell me about your experience with the Nazis. Were you sent?
Well, the only thing we could do is just keep a low profile at the time there until the fall of Italy. And that's when the Germans started picking up the Jews. We were not just going to school.
Do you remember what year that was?
Late 43, 44.
43 or 44, okay.
And my father at that time there was in Athens on a shopping trip. And when they heard that they started picking up the Jews from Salonika. And of course it was transmitted right away. My father found out about it and came home and got in contact with the underground right away. And within a day or so, we were taken in the middle of the night, passed through the German lines, and whisked out to the mountains. And we stayed all the time in a monastery.
You hid in a monastery in the mountains?
We had one room, I'd say about a fourth of this, with a fireplace, dirt ground, and wooden stools to sit on, and that was our quarters for almost 2 years.
2 years?
Food, we learned survival the hard way. Learned to pick up berries, dandelion, and cook. I noticed...
With your parents?
My parents.
And you have any brothers or sisters?
One brother who died about 3 years ago.
Okay. So you were in the forest?
Right.
With your brother?
With my brother,
Older or younger?
Younger.
Younger. And your parents?
And my parents.
Okay.
And...
what were your parents telling you? What was happening? Did they tell you we had to leave?
All they needed is my help to go around picking up berries or mushrooms. Or I had to be careful with the mushrooms, but nevertheless, the underground would stop by the monastery every now and then, and they always bring some food. There was only one family.
Was it the Zionist underground?
Yeah, right. There was only one family that was taking care of the monastery. There was nobody else around. It was 3 hours walk downhill from where we were. The Germans didn't come up there, but we were notified by the underground to get ready to be moved. And when the Germans started coming, they picked us up at night again, and they moved us through the forest down to a small village behind the German lines. So when they were combed the mountains, there were nobody there to be picked up. And that's where...
They went to the
Yeah, that's where I lost my grandmother. She was in a small village up the mountain.
And how did you lose her?
The,
How did-
somebody told the Germans that she was Jewish, and they picked her up.
maybe.
And from there on, we lost track. We don't know whatever happened to her. Whether she died before, she got killed, she was taken to the concentration camps, nobody knows.
You lived in the monastery for 2 years?
Almost, yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Until, because then, towards the end of the war, when the Germans came to comb the mountain,
Were you religious Jews?
right.
You were religious?
Uh,
What did
uh,
you think was happening?
well,
I mean, were you
so,
praying? Did you do praying?
don't forget, over there, we were not Jewish. As far as the people there is concerned, we were not Jewish.
You were
When
Greek.
there was a festival, a Christian festival, and the church was open, then we go to the church. There's no way about it. That's right. The church, I mean, like my father said, the God belongs just as much there as anywhere else, in the synagogue or anywhere else. So he said, you don't have to go and pray to whatever they pray, but you can go there.
You can talk to God anywhere.
That's right.
Basically. They knew you were Jewish, obviously, the monastery.
They did.
Did they require you to be Catholic?
No.
They just
No.
They didn't do anything like that. They just
No, they did.
They hid you.
They did.
And did they help feed you?
And they did. Right. Now, after, like I said, after we left the monastery, we went down to a small village closer to town.
Were there any people in the monastery you remember?
Names? No.
No, excuse me. Any people in the monastery that you remember that might have stood out to you a little bit?
I don't think so.
No, because I know you were a small boy.
Right. But there were nobody. There was one family. That was the only people in the monastery. The people who were coming up there to worship during the festival once or twice a year, it were very few. And as far as they're concerned, I mean, we were just worshipers, just like everybody else. It's over
So
there.
even the people coming didn't know you were Jewish?
No. Only that family, and the family that it took us in the village after the Germans moved us down.
They knew.
They knew that.
What did you do after the war?
After the war,
How did you know that the Jews were liberated? How did somebody get a message to you?
Germans disappeared. The
was
the underground moved in, and we were free.
So there wasn't any one conversation you can remember?
Right? No,
The
not
Germans
really.
disappeared, the underground moved in,
Right.
and you knew you were free. How
And
was everything in liberation? How was that?
Oh, of
Living
course.
in hiding for 2 years, not having a lot of food.
Well, it was just as hard after the liberation because we were, my family, my parents, we were one of the few people that didn't have anybody to leave things with. Some of my mother's trousseau, I was left with a friend. They in turn gave it as a trousseau to their daughters. So when we came back down, they said the Germans picked it up. That this you know better, because if you were keeping something that belonged to the Jew, you have not turned it to the Germans, and the Germans found out about it. You were in just as much trouble as anybody else. So, but my mother happened to see her trousseau in one of the people's daughters' home that she happened to visit one day. So we know that. Also, my father's store was ravaged completely. He was in the cosmetic business. So he had to go start from scratch to rebuild. But for us kids, especially for myself, there was no time to worry about or to fool about, because I had 3 years, almost 3 years of school to catch up with. Now, Greece had made easy for people like me, and there were not just the Jews, there were other people that have lost classes. They allow you to go to the class that you supposed to have been. In the meantime, take exams quarterly of the previous classes. And if you pass them, so I had a tutor that helped me. And I passed all 3 years that I had missed, and I continued. My brother could not do that. My brother lost 1 year, so he fell behind a little bit. But we were busy doing that. Then after this, when things came back, in fact, our home was also occupied by another family. And we had to share the kitchen, the bathroom.
You had to share your own home.
We had one room of ourselves, and of course the dining room and the living room were shared by everybody for several months until they found a place that they moved out. Then we had
They
our
just
home.
moved into your house while you were in hiding?
Yeah, they were living right. Well, the great government did that, especially up in the north. They wanted the Jews, were especially the ones that they were taken by the Germans in the concentration camps. They put families in their homes, and there was a problem when these families came back, because the families that were living there then they had understood that that would be their home. And came back, and they claimed their home, and that was. But things got straightened out eventually, and people took.
When you think about this, I know you had a lot of feelings about being Mediterranean Jew versus the Germans and the Polish Jews. When you think about your experience, what do you think most about?
On one side, you can't hold grudge the rest of your life. On the other side, you cannot forget. There is a saying, of course, that says forgive and forget. But humans are not animals. We don't forget, no matter how much you want to forget. I certainly was, in the beginning, I was quite bitter, especially losing my grandmother, because she more or less raised me. In time that my mother had to go somewhere, my grandmother was right around the corner to take care of me. And she was dear to us, so we lost her. And that was the last survivor of my parents, both my parents' families. Then the rest of them was uncles and aunts and that sort of thing. But eventually I guess I got used to it and just buckled down and go on with my life. And whatever happened, it happened. Main thing is that try not to let it happen again. Whether anywhere I can contribute to that fact to make people aware of what has happened, then I'm always glad to do it and try to help on it.
Did you ever wonder during those 2 years in the monastery?
Yes, we visited.
You've been back to visit?
I'll be back.
What was that like?
Totally different. They had water, running water. They had they had beds in there. They had concrete in the places. It was a hotel back when we went to see it. Yeah, I took my family by. My wife, my daughter was too young. She does not remember it, going there. But
Where did you meet your wife?
my wife,
Where did you meet her? In Greece?
she's an American.
She's American. You met her here.
Here in the United States.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, not really. Other than I do appreciate you people program and the effort that you're putting into that program, and I think that this program and others like that would contribute greatly to equalize, to make people aware of what has happened in the past and perhaps avoid it happening again. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. I want you to know that we find it an honor that you share this with us, and that I'm so thrilled that you called me back and that we were able to talk to you today.